So thank you so much, Caroline, for being on Diamond TV. If you could just explain what you do and how you can help other women, that would be great.
Okay, so what I do is I'm actually a rapid transformational therapist. So what I do is I help people really in the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. So, and I specialize in narcissistic abuse, anxiety, depression, PTSD, codependency, all of those kinds of things. And I use a combination of something called rapid transformational therapy, which is a relatively new super therapy. It's been around about 3 years now. And it's a combination of hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, CBT, and NLP. And that gets really to the root cause of any issue. So if you think of anxiety, for instance, it doesn't just treat the symptoms of anxiety. It looks at why have you got anxiety and goes right back to the root cause and then resets it very rapidly, so you're able to then obviously move forward. And then a combination of that, so that people can just have a one-off session with me with RTT, or I also do high performance coaching. So I was out in San Diego this year being coached by a guy called Brendan Burchard, and people may or may not know him. He's like the #1 high performance coach in the world. He's coached Olympic athletes, presidents, and that, and he certifies probably about 100 people a year in high performance coaching. So I'm very science based. So a lot of the stuff that I do is based around neuroscience. It's based around how we can train our brain. So we're looking at subconscious and conscious. So really to help people with any blocks they have, because a lot of the women in business maybe that are listening in as well, sometimes we feel like we're not getting to where we need to be, and consciously we want that success and we want to really move forward, but there's something stopping us, and that could be something from our childhood, some trauma there. It could be toxic relationships, it could be our anxiety, depression, PTSD, but it's all come from somewhere. So I kind of really peel the layers back and really get to the root cause of all of that and reset it, and then give you tools of how you can go out and live your best life, happiest life in business and life.
Brilliant. And how is that? How do you work with clients? Do you meet them one-to-one, or is it?
Really. So I've got clients all over the world. So I'd probably say 80% of my client base is online. So I've pretty much built my business really using Facebook, to be honest. Okay. So I've built my business pretty much online, and 20% is I network locally. And so for me, that's sort of connecting with those who are local to me. But for me, it was always about building a business that was location independent. So I could be anywhere in the world and still build my business, because I love traveling. So, you know, the long-term goal for me is to have something that I can grab my laptop, take it wherever. I can still coach my clients wherever I am in the world, and, you know, and still see the world at the same time.
Definitely. And what's the process? So, for example, if I was suffering with anxiety and I come to you, how do we get to the bottom of it?
Okay, so what rapid transformational therapy is, it's a 2-hour session, and I kind of do a pre-session questionnaire to get to know more about you, your childhood, your relationships. So a kind of history-taking exercise with that. And then in the 2-hour session, the first kind of 15 to 20 minutes is, again, me asking some questions and really sort of getting to know you more. And then the session is about 90 minutes, the actual RTT session. And in that, I will put you into hypnosis. Now, everyone gets a bit scared about hypnosis, thinking, oh my God. Yeah. But all hypnosis is a deep state of relaxation. That's all it is. So in hypnosis, I put you into hypnosis, and then I normally go back to 3 to 5 scenes that are really relevant and the root cause of why you have that anxiety. Now, I'll give you an example for me, and I'll do it for weight loss, actually, because I treat a lot of my clients, if they've suffered from PTSD and stuff, they will also have other issues, and sometimes weight gain can be that as well, because obviously they're not exercising and that. So I'll use me as an example for this. So I had my own RTT session. I've had RTT a few times myself, but I'll use the weight, for example, because it'll really highlight root causes of things. So I knew I'd been carrying some extra weight for a while, probably for about 5 years really, and I tried to lose it, and then I'd done that. So I was either very, very, very good, or I was rubbish, okay, and all of that, you know, emotional eating, and then I'd be really good for a while, and then I'd go back and you know, typical yo-yo and everything. Consciously, I knew what to do. I knew I should be exercising more. I knew what foods I should be eating, but I wasn't doing it consistently. Now, any weight issues, it's never about the food. So what RTT does, it gets to the root cause. Why was I emotionally eating? Why was it I could be really, really good, and then all of a sudden eat really badly? Because I knew I shouldn't, but with the brain, emotion overrides logic every single time. So when I had my RTT sessions, what transpired was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I've got a couple of other businesses as well. And in one of those, there was a woman in particular who was not the nicest, let's put it like that. And she was a really big lady. And I shy away from conflict due to my own divorce and everything. I don't like conflict or anything like that. So I just shied away, turned my head, got on with my own business. However, as we know, not everybody's really, really nice. And she'd be kind of out there chattering away. And other people were being sympathetic towards her, listening to what she was saying, even though I knew things weren't true. And I really struggled with that at the time, because I wanted to go and shout from the rooftops what the truth was and everything else. But I didn't want to do that. And then it would be like a she said, or anything, you know. I'm too old for all of that playground stuff. So in my mind, so in my subconscious mind, Gemma, I created this belief: if you're bigger, people are nicer to you. They don't see you as so much of a threat. So my belief then was, if I carry a bit of extra weight and I'm successful, people will be less mean to me and nicer to me because I'd be bigger. And of course that's rubbish, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, people are people and they're going to be like that anyway. But I created this belief, and in our subconscious mind, which is about 90% of our mind, this is where we have these subconscious beliefs running, are these programs that override anything that you think consciously. So when I went back in hypnosis and realized this, you can reset it. So in RTT, you have the hypnosis. We go back to 3 to 5 scenes that are relevant to whatever that issue is, because it's an RTT per issue. Mm-hmm. And I do a series of techniques, sort of upgrading the child. We do a role function purpose. Sometimes we dialogue with the hurter. So if it's been someone who's not been nice to you, we dialogue with them. I even do something called fuck you therapy in that, where we dialogue with that person who hurt you. And we would, because all of that emotion that's inside of you, if we don't release that, that's where we get stress-related illnesses. And a lot of my clients might come to me and they've got IBS, migraines, fibromyalgia, very much stress-related illnesses, because they're not letting that emotion out. So it manifests itself in the body. And with our subconscious mind, this is where our programs are stored, and from childhood as well. So that's why consciously, you know, we want to be successful. Consciously, we know we shouldn't eat those foods. Consciously, we know we're good enough, but we have a subconscious program running saying, you're not good enough, eat those cakes, you know, all of those things. And that overrides your logic every single time. So in the RTT session, I get right to the bottom and the root cause of that. Yeah. And because you're in hypnosis and in the subconscious, because if you imagine, if you're going to normal therapy, that's just talking therapy, which, you know, has its place, but that's only 10% of your mind, you know, and you end up having to go every month for, you know, years on end potentially. And sometimes you can make those changes, but very often you might be okay for a year after talking therapy. But if that subconscious program doesn't change and you don't understand why you had that program in the first place, it's going to creep back in again. If you can get to the root cause of that and change it in hypnosis, it's so powerful. It's like, you imagine if you have 4 people in a car crash, you could have one that gets PTSD and the other 3 don't. The event is exactly the same. The reason why one person gets PTSD and not the others is the words and pictures that you are saying to your brain, because that's what your brain works on. So if we're telling ourselves all of these things, our brain responds to it. It doesn't recognize whether it's right or wrong. It just recognizes that it will do what you tell it. And for various reasons, normally from your childhood and beyond, where you've got your subconscious program running. So it's not the events, that cause issues for us in our life. It's not an event that gives us anxiety. It's not an event that gives us depression. It's the meaning we attach to that event. Wow. That's why not everyone gets anxiety. That's why everyone doesn't get depression. It's a very personal thing based on our own experiences from our childhood and environment and that. And then it's the meaning we attach to those events. So for instance, for me, I grew up never feeling good enough. I never felt anything was good enough. So I was this really high achiever because my dad was never able to say, I love you or I'm proud of you. Not because now as an adult I know he wasn't. He just wasn't able to verbalise what I needed to hear as a child. So when I'd be doing, say, gymnastics in the lounge, he'd be the judge and he'd be like, 9.99 recurring. He'd never give me a 10. Now he thought in that moment it was just he was saying that. For me, I thought, oh, I'm not good enough then. I'll do it again. And then because he wasn't telling me he loved me and proud of me, because he didn't know how, because of his upbringing, his way of showing me love was driving me around the country for my tennis tournaments. But as a child, I didn't collate that as love. I wanted to hear it. Yeah. So I grew up not feeling good enough, which then meant my friendships, my relationships, I attracted narcissists because I would always try and be good enough to them. So I was like a magnet to them. So for my own RTT, when I did my regressions and went back to the times when my dad was giving me 9.9, my subconscious program in that moment was the meaning I attached to that event was I wasn't good enough. But in hypnosis, I could go back and review that event and say, well, of course I was good enough. It was because my dad obviously wasn't able to do that. It wasn't about me. It was about my dad. And I could change the belief so that I knew, I didn't just know consciously I was good enough. I could reprogram my subconscious to show I was good enough. So it's really interesting. It's fascinating stuff about the brain.
Really intense. Do you have like more than one client on at a time? How do you do with it?
Yeah, I mean, currently at the moment, so I do one-off RTT sessions. So if someone just sort of comes to me and they've got anxiety and stuff, I'll do one-off sessions for that. But very often, because I specialise in narcissistic abuse as well, I tend to do 3 or 6 month coaching programs because there's a lot other stuff around that. So I can do the RTT for things, but it's even things like that. It's strategies on how do you parallel parent, how do you communicate with your ex, because it's still ongoing abuse as well. So it's very much practical strategies as well. And then I use a lot of positive psychology and the high performance coaching, so that when they kind of finish the coaching, they've got strategies of how to go out and actually live their life and be connected, be engaged, be happy, be more confident. So with tools and strategies of how to do that as well. So normally at the moment, I've got 24 one-to-one clients at the moment.
Wow.
Thank you. I've had like 6 messages today about RTT. So it just varies really and stuff like that. So I have a big group on Facebook as well called Divorce and Breakup Support After Narcissistic Abuse, which has got nearly 4,000 women in now as well. So
I thought you just specialised in divorce. I didn't realise you did RTT as well.
When I started my divorce coaching and that, because I'd come from a narcissistic abusive relationship from my marriage 9 years ago, when I started the divorce coaching, because I knew how hard it was coming out of a divorce, and forget the narcissistic abuse, any divorce can be tough. But I kept getting, maybe obviously because that was me as well, a lot of people coming to me about narcissistic abuse. And I'll be really honest, initially I really shied away from it because it's a label we overuse in society now. You know, if you break up with someone, oh, they're a narcissist, you know. Well, not necessarily, they might just be an asshole, basically. But we use the word all the time. If we break up and they're not nice, we're like, oh, they're a narcissist. And narcissistic abuse is very specific. So, you know, I've done loads of research on it, and I do positive psychology and stuff around all of that. So, you know, it is a medical condition. It is a mental health disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. So it's very specific traits of that, but it's a really specific form of psychological abuse. So the more people come into me, I thought, do you know what, I do need to specialise in this area, because there's not many people who understand it. You know, there's people who've been through it, and it really does break you. It nearly broke me, and I've always said if it wasn't for my children, I wouldn't be here today. It was such a hard time because I lost my family home. I had £70,000 worth of debt when my ex-husband left, and I got diagnosed with PTSD, depression, anxiety. I was self-harming, all hiding from my kids from all of that, and just trying to get through each day for my children, and then kind of clawed my way back. So a lot of what I do basically is stuff I've learned myself through my own experience. A lot of it is through, I have a medical background as well, so it's kind of the neuroscience behind how the brain works during abuse as well. The RTT came in that I wanted to speed up that initial start of the healing process, and that's just been amazing. And then the high performance coaching was about, once they're kind of on their pathway to healing, it's about a structure for them to go out and live their best life then, and create these high performance habits so they know what to implement in their life. So everything I do is very evidence based. You know, it's not kind of like, hopefully this will work. It's backed by science. It's all evidence based. It's about how the brain works with all of that too. So yes, I specialize now in the narcissistic abuse because, you know, there's so little known, and I volunteer at the local domestic abuse charity. And, you know, psychological abuse, it's so difficult to explain to people because, of course, you don't see the bruises. So a lot of the people I work with, I always say, when you come out of an abusive relationship, you kind of got 3 lanes of recovery. One is the legal lane that you have to obviously deal with. The other is the emotional lane. And then the other lane is the justification one, because with psychological abuse, when you're coming out and you start to tell people what's happened, people might be like, but he seems so nice. Yeah. I can't, you know, and like, did he really mean that? You know, so you feel like you're having to justify, because of course behind closed doors it's very different from how they portray themselves in public. You know, very often, you know, you will know narcissists right now and they might come across as the most lovely people, or they might be quite victim-like, so because there's different types of narcissists, so we won't necessarily know because we don't see the bruises as such, you know. But the women I work with, you know, they are really at rock bottom because they feel like no one believes them, and they're saying what's happened to them in this relationship, and they just feel like people are not believing them. And the brain really changes during abuse as well. There's 3 main areas of the brain that really get affected, and we become addicted to feeling like that. So, and they've said, you know, it's 20 times harder to break the addiction to a narcissist than heroin. So there's a lot of brain changes going on there. So, you know, when I work with my clients with that on a coaching package, it's very much about changing their brain and how they focus, and the different types of areas of the brain that get affected, kind of moving them back. Because years ago we used to think once the brain was set, that was it, but we now know with neuroplasticity we can change it. And then, you know, practical things of how to cope. And very often the women that come to me, the core of all of this is they don't feel good enough. So the RTT is brilliant about them rewiring the brain so they realise they are good enough. It wasn't their fault. Not just knowing it consciously, but feeling it as well, because there's such a big difference with that.
Wow, that's really good to know that you do that. And you launched a book, didn't you?
I did. I wrote a book which came out last September, which went bestseller in 3 categories on Amazon, which is amazing. Yeah. So it was basically my story, really. It's called Divorce Became My Superpower. So it was, and again, it was about, really the main reason I wanted to write it was to give other people hope. Because I think when you're going through a divorce, when you're going through any kind of domestic abuse, psychological abuse, you feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And I wanted to show a story, and there's a lot of humour in it as well, that there's hope at the end of the tunnel. And in psychology, we also have something called post-traumatic growth. So I had PTSD, but I went on to have post-traumatic growth. Now, what that means is the life I now lead and what I've created is better because of what I went through. Mm-hmm. So my life, I'm not saying I wouldn't have had a bad life necessarily, but I've gone on to have more purpose, more meaning, create a really good business because of what I went through. Yeah. And had I not been through that, then I wouldn't be where I am now. So I do feel incredibly grateful for that. I learned, so me going through that divorce and the toxicity of all of that, You know, and I always say this to my clients, we can't change anybody else. So rather than always doing the blame game, and, you know, like for me, I did that for a while. I blamed my ex and I was angry at him and everything else, but he was never going to change. So I needed to take that responsibility and think, okay, I can't change him. Why am I reacting like this? Why do I feel like this? And this is the same for anyone listening in. You know, if you hear someone says something about you, or you're in a situation, rather than thinking about, well, why are they saying that? What are they doing that for? Think, why am I reacting like this? Because if I'm reacting like this is something I need to heal myself. This is telling me this is something I need to work on. And if you work on that, you keep all your power all the time, because it's just you. It's your life, and you can't make anybody else do or say anything.
No, definitely not. I think I need it. So in your Facebook group, you've got 4,000 women. That's incredible. Do you post videos and support in there?
I do. So I post normally at least once a day, normally twice. And I do a regular, I was doing a regular Sunday Night Live actually on my business page, but I've just moved it into my group now because it's a bit more personal, and it's a safe and secure group for women to be in. I'm very careful who I let in. I vet everybody. I'm the only admin on it, which sometimes takes a bit of time, but I know what narcissists can be like about trying to then get into the group. So I'm really particular about and check everybody out. So on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock, I always do a live each week. The one I've just done this Sunday night was about brain changes during narcissistic abuse. And then this Sunday, I'm actually doing one on parenting with a narcissist. So each week I just do maybe a half-hour video. People can ask me questions, because I know not everybody's going to be able to obviously afford coaching, but I also know how hard it is coming out of that relationship. And for me, it is about giving back as well. It's about having meaning and purpose to my own life, and hence why I volunteer at the charity, because I feel like I need that. So as much as I'm helping them, it's helping me still as well, because it's something I feel I need to do.
Definitely.
You know, and then the connections within the group as well. People make friends, people have met up. It's great.
Yeah, really good. So you mentioned you've got a couple of other businesses. What are they?
So my background was I was a podiatrist, so a foot doctor. That was what I initially.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I split up from my ex-husband, that's what I was doing. But of course, I was left in all of this debt. So the money coming in didn't equal the money going out. So I actually started a network marketing business. I didn't even know it was a network marketing business at the time. I'd just seen this woman who was working from home, and it looked like she was earning some extra money around her kids. And I thought I could do with an extra few £100s a month. So I literally started my business, knew nothing about it at all. I just knew I liked products, and I thought, well, okay, I've got patience. I could talk to people about that because I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
But very quickly, I could see a bigger potential with that. So within 6 months, I doubled my podiatry salary and stopped being a podiatrist. And then within 18 months of doing that network marketing business, I'd built a team where we were turning over £1 million worth of product. And I literally, again, I learned Facebook. Facebook for me has been my saviour, because I was still suffering with anxiety at the time. I didn't want to go out and network and that, because I was scared. I didn't have any confidence. So for me, I could kind of hide behind Facebook. And again, I saw Facebook a bit like a science. How do I learn how to, get people to interact and engage? So any investment I gave into my business and myself was learning more about Facebook, because I knew for me that would enable me to build my business. So I started that business, 6 years ago now. I'm not, personally, I don't build in that business anymore. I haven't for the last couple of years, because obviously doing my coaching with that. But I still earn a great passive income every single month, which pays for my kids to go to private school now. But I was able to pay off all my debt, and I've got a team probably of nearly 3,000 people still now as well with that. But I worked really hard for 4 years, really hard. And I was one of the top business builders in the UK in that company as well. And then I did get remarried about 2.5 years ago, and my husband's a mortgage broker and life advisor. So about a couple of years ago, we set up a business for life insurance for mums. And so I basically, for about 8 months, I really helped build that up and set that up again using Facebook and everything like that. So, we've got that business together as well. but my heart lies in coaching. I absolutely love helping people, and for me, it doesn't feel like work because I love seeing people's transformation and that. And I feel like as a toolkit with the RTT, the positive psychology, the high performance coaching, I feel like I've nailed it with how to help people with that.
Fantastic, that's really good. With your coaching, is it obviously you specialize in narcissistic behavior, but can you apply the same models about the brain to other areas in life? Is it similar?
Absolutely, and that's why I do the anxiety, depression, PTSD. The thing is with RTT in particular as well, obviously, you know, I can do fertility, weight loss, public speaking, wealth wiring, all of that. If you have an issue, anybody basically, there is a reason why. There is a root cause why you have that issue, because when we're born, we're not born with issues.
No.
It's our childhood, it's our environment. And sometimes that can be major trauma in childhood. You know, I've had clients where there's obviously child abuse, rape, kidnap. I've had lots come up in the regression, but they're not reliving those scenes, they're just reviewing them. So although people obviously get very emotional with that, it's releasing all of that and resetting it, and very often realizing it's not their fault. We do the dialogue often with the hurter and stuff. So there's a lot of parameters. So whatever an issue is, RTT can help with that. I specialize obviously in things like narcissistic abuse, PTSD, anxiety and depression, etc., because that's what I've been through as well. But that encompasses everything else. And then the high performance, because, you know, I've got a group running at the moment actually, and it's for female entrepreneurs actually, and it's called Rewire for Success. So they've all had an RTT session to reset everything for them in the past, and then they've got 12 weeks of high performance coaching sessions as well, because the high performance coaching, it's very specific questions, worksheets of what they are to do with that, in 6 key high performance habits in 6 areas of your life. So it's all very specific, and the tools. So you know, it's not a coaching session with me isn't kind of like, how are you feeling today? Okay, so what are you going to get up to this week? What are you committing to? That's not my coaching sessions. They are solution focused, they're very driven, you know, it's very much about driving you forward. And when I do my divorce coaching, the narcissistic abuse, if they've got a coaching package, they also have unlimited WhatsApp to me, which you might think, oh my God, do I get loads of messages all the time? And I genuinely don't. They like to know someone is there who isn't emotionally involved. So they might, you know, if out of those 24 one-to-one clients, I might get maybe 3 messages a day, maybe there's been a handover and something's happened, and they can just drop me a quick message on WhatsApp. I can send an audio back. So it keeps them moving forward. It's not that it's going to fester for another week till our coaching session. I can keep moving them forward. And that was important to me. So I've kind of set everything up as what I thought I would need when I was going through that. I didn't want to feel alone, but I did. You know, I wanted practical strategies. I didn't have that. I didn't understand how the brain functioned. So, you know, when I was forgetting things and when I felt really hypervigilant all of the time, I didn't realize that that wasn't my fault. It was my brain had changed because of the abuse that had been involved. So, you know, it's helping people understand, but giving them practical strategies to move forward as well, and getting to the root cause, trying to deal with that. How do you deal with the present? How do you deal with your ex now and move forward? But all of the other issues that people may have, then we can change that as well. So it's a very powerful therapy, and it's rapid. It's normally 1 session, 1 to 3 sessions. So people who come to me with, say, anxiety, it's normally 1 session, and they go away going, oh, that's why. I get it now. I get why, and I don't need it.
Wow, yeah, because it's amazing now, isn't it? Everyone I nearly speak to says they've got anxiety.
Absolutely. And again, I say to my clients when I talk about anxiety, it's normal to feel anxious. If you were stood on the end of a cliff, it's normal to feel anxious, but so many of us feel that if we feel anxious, we have anxiety, and we don't. But then if we start telling ourselves we've got anxiety, the brain thinks, well, okay, we'll have anxiety then, because you're telling me that, and the brain works on repetition. So we have to be really careful about the words we're saying to ourselves, because our brain will respond.
Yeah,
it will do what we want to
do. Tips today. Yeah. How do we follow you and engage with you? And if they wanted to go ahead with coaching, how do we do that?
So I've got my website, carolinestrawson.com, and there's a contact form on there that people can fill in. But probably the best way is through Facebook, really. I am on Instagram and I am on LinkedIn. But if people want to message me on Facebook and connect with me, or they want to join my group or anything like that, just connect with me there, because I'm sort of popping on and off there a lot of the time as well. That's where I get most of my connections.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very, very much for taking time out to speak with us about what you do. And obviously we've been connected for so long and we've never actually spoken.
I know. That's the beauty of social media, isn't it?
It is.
People and you haven't met them.
I know, but now I know if I meet anyone that needs that, I can direct them your way, definitely.
Thank you. Thanks, Gemma.
Well, thanks, Caroline. Have a great evening, and this will be uploaded to the YouTube channel, so I'll share it with you before we put it on social media.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye.